My name is Egon Dugas. I do parkour, and I like to talk about it. This is Parkour Nerding 5. Parkour isn't dangerous. I want to dedicate this one to my grandmother, Katrina Miguez. Before I begin, I want to let you know that if you would prefer to consume this episode in written form, the entire script is posted as an article on the free Parkour Nerding Substack. I will be releasing some of my content exclusively on there, so if you like these videos, I encourage you to subscribe to me on Substack. Alright, let's jump into the video. Is parkour really as dangerous as many people think? Parkour has a reputation as a risky and extreme activity, but I'm going to challenge that perception. I go so far as to contend that parkour has the potential to be safer than nearly any other sport. It has a structure that is uniquely suited to allow for safety, and practicing parkour develops safety skills applicable beyond the discipline. A sport designed for control. Parkour can be dangerous, no doubt about it. But it's also one of the best alternatives to traditional sports for people who prioritize safety. Why? Because it allows you more control over what happens to your body than almost any other physical discipline I know. Parkour is only as dangerous as you make it. Other sports might try to claim the same, but I know of very few where it's true to the same extent as it is in parkour. Parkour is simplified. While the range of possible movements, styles, and spots in parkour is vast, parkour is simpler and more intuitive to practice than most other sports in a few key ways. First, there are no other people involved. While parkour is often social, it's rarely performed in conjunction with other people. It's an individual activity. There's little risk of collisions, getting tripped, elbowed, or having to adapt suddenly to someone else's decisions. This alone simplifies the practice and makes outcomes far more predictable than in team sports, racing sports, combat sports, circus arts, big game hunting, equestrian activities, and others. Second, the environment in parkour is mostly stable. You're interacting with walls, railings, pavement, sturdy, unmoving things. While some street infrastructure can be sketchy, that risk is largely mitigated by the custom within the parkour community of checking surfaces for stability. Injuries from environmental failure are rare, and most of them result from carelessness. For anyone concerned about safety, the fact that parkour happens in a solid, predictable environment should be reassuring when contrasted with activities like paragliding, surfing, whitewater rafting, skiing, mountaineering, or spelunking. Finally, there's no fallible or hard-to-master equipment in parkour. Like the environment, this lowers the learning curve and helps practitioners, new and old, make accurate risk assessments. Our only equipment is the body and usually a pair of shoes. Most people have been moving their body and wearing shoes since toddlerhood. Even when athletes attempt unfamiliar movements, the level of complexity and unfamiliarity is generally lower than in sports which involve equipment like auto racing, cycling, skating, traditional climbing, weightlifting, baseball, luging, or pole vaulting. Split-second reactions in parkour can be more intuitive and instinctive by comparison. Parkour is typically planned. While parkour can be improvisational, athletes usually decide in advance what they want to attempt. There's almost never a deadline or a start signal, so athletes are free to plan and prepare at their own pace. Improvisation and quick thinking are central to most other sports, so not having to rush or make spontaneous decisions is a pretty special characteristic of parkour training that allows athletes to push their limits in a more controlled way. Parkour has fewer external motivators. Even when athletes can take their time making decisions, those choices can still be shaped by outside influences. The spirit of competition is one of those influences. Parkour has the unique privilege of being both a sport and a non-sport. There are competitions one can join, which would be sport parkour, but most parkour training is non-competitive. Athletes who choose not to compete have less reason to worry that their prudence might be compromised by competitiveness, others' expectations, or the urge to impress. Parkour is self-guided. Parkour athletes set their own challenges and train at whatever level they choose. They take as much or as little risk as they want and are free to back out of any challenge at any time. Some other activities require agreements in advance, like stunts or circus contracts or any sport where the games are scheduled. And many sports necessarily involve coaches who push you or make training decisions for you. These elements can be an incredibly helpful part of parkour too, but parkour is not tied to them, making it appealing for anyone who values full autonomy over their own safety. Footnote. Here I want to address what I think is one of the most astute questions a reader could ask at this point. Can being athlete-controlled make an activity more dangerous if the athletes don't know how to keep themselves safe? The answer is absolutely. Most people don't know how to prevent an ACL tear or how to break down a new flip into safe progression steps. That's why I would say, if you or someone in your life is interested in trying parkour, the safest and fastest way to learn is to find a class taught by an experienced parkour athlete and coach. Just search for classes online. A good coach with parkour experience will be able to save you from making all the mistakes they made as a beginner. They can teach you how to take care of yourself when they are not around. The mark of a good parkour coach, in my opinion, is that they equip you with the skills you need to coach yourself and train independently if you want to. That said, not everyone has access to coaching, especially good coaching, and even the people who do may not find the coach necessary or helpful. Having choices is always a good thing. End of footnote, but still on the topic of self-guidedness. Parkour is especially self-guided because there are hardly any restrictions whatsoever on what you can do. In terms of the movement itself, parkour may be the most broad movement discipline there is. It has overlap with climbing, track, gymnastics, circus, tricking, yoga, dance, breaking, ninja warrior, urbex, urban exploration, martial arts, calisthenics, and a whole bunch more. This actually makes a big difference for safety. It means that if someone has a physical limitation, let's say for example that you have a bad knee, or even that you're an amputee, you can find parkour challenges involving just your good leg, or hanging from your hands, or even lying down, at no cost. But if you're playing hockey, for example, you kind of need both legs to play the game. Even if you could theoretically slide around on your butt to be safe, you're heavily incentivized not to by the fact that you'll lose hockey. So in parkour, you aren't just free from governance by other people, you're free of direction from the form of the activity too. Any safety needs can be accommodated because you can make up all of your own goals. Some things people get wrong. If you are not a parkour athlete, and maybe even if you are, you might still think parkour is dangerous because of the kinds of moves athletes always do and the environments they train in. I hear these arguments all the time, and usually the reasoning is perfectly logical and understandable. Still, I think they tend to overlook some important realities, and I want to take a brief aside to challenge just a couple popular assumptions. Common misconception 1. Hard surfaces are inherently more dangerous. Parkour is often seen as more extreme than something like gymnastics simply because it takes place on less forgiving surfaces. There may be a bit of truth to that, but most people making this claim miss a key point. A person's appetite for risk stays constant across surfaces. So sure, doing a backflip on a mat is safer than doing one on concrete. At first glance, that might suggest parkour athletes would be safer training on mats. But in actuality, the athlete who's comfortable flipping on concrete probably won't feel challenged doing the same move on a soft surface. They're willing to train with a certain amount of risk or uncertainty, and they'll seek that level of challenge no matter the surface. Give them a mat, and they'll usually try something harder until it feels equally near their edge. Additionally, soft surfaces can create a false sense of security. It's easy to underestimate risks when you assume a mat or foam pit will take care of everything, and this mentality can increase rather than decrease an athlete's risk of injury. On concrete, those same risks are clearer and more present, and that awareness leads to more caution. Common misconception 2. Parkour is the movements, and the movements are dangerous. Even if you've read this far, it might still sound absurd for me to claim that parkour isn't any more dangerous than basketball. You've seen the videos, you know what the stunts look like, right? And falling off a high rooftop is clearly more life-threatening than any accident that happens on the basketball court. Okay. To respond to this viewpoint, I need to unpack 2 different ideas. First, probably any viral parkour clip you've seen, anything you call truly impressive, was done by someone with years of training behind them. Beginner parkour looks very different, potentially unrecognizable even. Almost everyone starts out as a beginner, and beginner parkour is not very impressive looking to most people. Regrettably, it can actually look kind of ridiculous or dumb to outsiders, even if it's a legitimately cool, scary, or demanding challenge for the person doing it. Since videos of beginners are not as impressive, they rarely go viral. As a result, people outside the parkour bubble only ever see clips from elite athletes. It's no wonder, then, that so many people think parkour is synonymous with death-defying stunts. Their perception of parkour is distorted. Because the years of training aren't shown in the elite clips, it's easy to assume that being a parkour athlete means doing extreme stunts. Parkour means a lot of things to a lot of different people, but everyone should be able to agree that parkour isn't always hardcore. Just like every other activity, the majority of parkour practitioners are not elite, and not everybody even wants to be. Okay, you might say, but a drop between 2 buildings is still dangerous, even for experienced practitioners. That brings me to my second point. There's a distinction to be made between the severity of a consequence and the likelihood of that consequence. A jump between rooftops clearly carries a high consequence if something goes wrong. But for a skilled athlete, the likelihood of failure is much lower than most people assume. I know that most people assume inaccurately because I'm just as susceptible to this misconception. When I'm new to a movement, it's extremely tricky to imagine what it would feel like for it to be easy. I've now been doing parkour long enough to do challenges that I used to think would be impossible for me. With this perspective, I can see that the feeling of challenge, fear, uncertainty that I have today when I do a jump to a handrail is the same exact feeling that I used to get doing the same jump between curbs. The feeling of personal difficulty does not change as you progress. From this, it follows that this is the same fear elite athletes experience when they train challenges at height. I know now that going up high is a different type of training. Nobody jumps between skyscrapers to see how far they can jump. They're always doing a movement that would be trivially easy for them to do at ground level. They have mastered it, just as I have now mastered curb hops. If someone decides to train at height, it's because increasing the consequence of an easy move adds fear, and they are there to challenge their mind alone. How parkour builds safer people. Although this essay is about why parkour can be a great fit for people who prioritize safety, nobody does parkour, or any physical activity, just to be safe. If safety were the only goal, you'd probably just stay in bed as much as possible. However, chances are, if you care a lot about staying safe in parkour, you probably also care about staying safe in other areas of your life. And that mindset can actually be a reason to learn parkour. Just like someone might learn to swim or take a self-defense class to feel safer, parkour is great at teaching safety skills that carry over into everyday situations. The most obvious safety benefits of parkour are the physical qualities it helps develop. Coordination, foot placement, balance, durability and stability, strength, mobility, to name a few. These come in handy when you encounter everyday tasks like descending stairs, walking on icy or uneven ground, playing with kids or pets, climbing ladders, showering, or taking part in other sports and hobbies. Then there are the falling techniques parkour athletes learn, called Ukemi. Rolls and break falls are two of the best known categories that Ukemi skills can fall into, pun intended. But parkour gives practitioners experience with hundreds of permutations of falls and fails.
Whoa!
Perfect, perfect. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
I knew that was gonna fucking...
You good?
Yeah.
Got it? Good save!
Oh!
Good save.
Knowing how to catch yourself becomes especially important with age. According to the CDC, falling is the leading cause of injury for adults 65 and over. One of the simpler but most important skills athletes develop in parkour is preparation, or prepping as we usually call it. Footnote, Parkour Nerding 3 is all about how to get better at the skill of prepping. Footnote over. Some preps are essentially just practice. They help the athlete get ready for the physical, technical, or mental demands of a challenge. The second kind, evaluative preps, give the athlete useful data about the challenge and about themselves. This kind of information helps athletes stay safe by showing them when something might be too difficult or too risky to attempt. Prepping is usually more common in parkour than in everyday life, but it is incredibly useful in both. If you're jumping over a puddle, lifting a heavy object, using a new tool, or having a serious conversation with your boss, it can be a lifesaver if you default to warming up your joints, trying a simpler version first, rehearsing technique, or troubleshooting your plan. Parkour also teaches athletes to come up with more creative ways to prep, and on a longer time scale, the internalized understanding that you can achieve huge things through patient training or study can be life-changing. The last skill on this list is prudent decision-making. Whether you're changing lanes on the freeway, investing money, or asking a risky question, everyone has to make uncertain choices sometimes, and few activities train responsible risk assessment as overtly as parkour does. Athletes gain intuition of their own physical limits. They become intimately familiar with the emotions that arise in stressful situations. They build confidence in their own decisions and grow less likely to freeze in the face of fear. Through parkour, people can experiment on low-risk challenges and get real-time feedback when they make poor decisions. That feedback helps them learn to make the right choices when the stakes are higher. Concluding remarks. Parkour athletes train for a wide variety of reasons. Not too long ago, the discipline was centered on preparing the body and mind to be useful in emergency situations. Today, some people train to compete and win, others chase the feeling of fulfillment that comes from pushing limits or conquering fear. Some enjoy performing, others are in it for fitness, community, or creative expression. Most practitioners could probably list dozens of things they love about it. This variety of motivations, along with the range of movement styles that go with them, mean that different people take different levels of risk in their training. There's a place in parkour for people of any disposition. I'll wrap up with an image I find both funny and true in a way that's hard to unsee. I like to describe parkour safety this way. Walls don't move. They mind their own business. Most of the time, if I get hurt doing parkour, it's because I've gone outside in my free time, come up with a strange new way to launch my body through the air, thought about what might go wrong, thought about the likelihood of that happening, decided to try anyway, and then bash my own body against the wall. In a very real and immediate sense, parkour doesn't hurt me. I hurt me. The risk isn't built into the environment or the sport. It's built into our decisions, and that means we can choose to be safe. If you're still watching, you probably liked the video. So, like the video, and subscribe to the channel, and subscribe to my Substack. Man, it takes me unreasonably long to film these, and it takes me a while to edit them, and so it's much easier, especially when I'm in college, to just say what I want to say in written form as an essay. You're going to see all that on the Substack, so you can just click the free option. You won't miss anything. I'm only going to be posting free content on there for the foreseeable future. Also, share it with people in your lives. Share this video with people that you know would be interested in it. And please, comment. Comment your positive feedback. Definitely comment your negative feedback. I really want to hear what you have to say. Thank you for watching. I love you. Bye-bye.